So welcome to part 3 of our basic concepts, which is part 2 of creating this frog image. So I've opened back up frog1.psd, which was saved in our last session. And we've got our flies on here. We've got our background and a bunch of flies. Now we're going to open up. So file and open. You're going to go back in there and grab that frog fly yet again. We're going to grab the frog fly and we're just going to remove the background this time. You can leave the fly that's there. Now, if you want to, you can get rid of that fly and go around the tongue, but it's completely optional. So to get rid of the white one, again, if we were in Photoshop, we'd use the magic eraser, but we're not. So we'll take the background eraser. Remember, it's going to sample. Sample means like pick the color, use the color from the center. So I'm going to use about a 100 size brush here and sample from the center. Around the objects, you kind of have to be careful. But like when you're out here on the edges, you don't have to be. Okay, so there we go, there we go, there we go. So go work your way around, making sure you, oops, careful. You mess up like me, you gotta slow down at that point, and then you gotta kind of be careful. We can still touch this up in Photoshop, so or in the other document. So if we mess it up, we'll just bring it in there. Okay. So once we get this done, we're going to select this little guy and we're going to bring it over to the other document. Remember that when we've edited something and then we're going to bring it over, our best option is going to be to select everything using Edit Select All, and then to copy, and then to paste. And that's what we will do in just a moment. Okay. Hoping I got my middle part there. Okay. I think it's for the most part. There's some spots up here at the top. So I could take my eraser and try to touch those up a little bit more. But it's good enough for now. I'm going to be okay with it for the moment. Okay, so again, select all, edit, copy, click back to the other document, edit, paste. There it is. Okay, now I'm going to get my navigator out of the way for a minute. All right, what's our home base? Move tool. So go back to the move tool. All right, now we got this little guy. We're going to stick him over here on this side of the screen. And again, if you wanted to at this point, you could go through and zoom up, Control plus or whatever, and erase some of these little spots that we can now see. I'm not going to make you watch me do a bunch of that because, this tutorial gets kind of long as it is. But you could do that, pull up your navigator, move around, fix those areas that you can see that are giving you trouble. Oops. You may even want to get the other eraser out to do it with or whatever, but it's fine. Okay, so if you want to go around, you can go around and do that. Remember, Control-0 fits to the screen, so you can fit it to the screen. If you wanted to make this smaller right now, you could press Control-Alt-T in Photopea, or take your transform handles and just scale it down, holding Shift from the corner and then press your check mark. But right now we're looking good, so we're good to go. Now, so one thing to know about erasers are what we call destructive in Photoshop land. And that means like once you get rid of something, unless you undo or back up in history right then, it's destroyed forever. So the next day if I come in and I'm missing part of my frog's ear, it's gone. Unless I'm going to draw it back in there, it's gone. So erasers are what we call destructive tools. Once you erase something, next day, you're not going to be able to get it back. So just keep that in mind and be very careful. All right, now we're going to add some text to this and then just play with some layer styles. So to add text, you're going to use your type tool. I'm going to move my navigator out of the way for a second. At the top up here, you're going to see your options bar. We're going to create our text, but we're going to put it in a couple of different boxes because I want to be able to move the words around, and you can't move words around if they're all in one box. So we're going to have a couple of boxes, and we're going to use that duplicate, that Alt and drag with the move tool, so we don't have to make a ton of boxes manually. All right, so I've clicked on my type tool. I'm just going to come over here and click one time and give it a second. It'll load your font, and then you should have your little blinker, your little cursor there. So for the first one, I'm going to say, I'm going to put frogs. That's what the first one's going to say. Okay. And for this one, Go ahead and hit your OK button up there. And then let's go ahead and pick and again, as long as you've already hit OK and you're on the layer, you can come over here and choose your font. I'm going to pick this, I don't know, Lamise font. I'm going to pick a really fat font. Okay, that feels kind of froggy to me. And then again, while you're not clicked on it or anything, you're just on the layer, you can come up here to size and you can like manually make it bigger. So we're going to make it like bigger like that. Okay. Now, if you want to pick your color to match, click on your color box for the text at the top. And then let's say I want to make it the color of my frog. I'm going to click on my frog to get that color and then hit OK. I know it looks weird, but we're going to add some layer styles to it in a minute, so it's okay. All right, back to home base, move tool. We're going to take our move tool and we're going to copy this one. So Alt, drag down. Okay, now I need to change the words, so I've got to be in the text tool because I'm dealing with text. So go and click on the T. So I know that's different than like doing it in Google Documents or something. I'm going to double click in here to select the word frog, and I'm going to type the word bugs. And then let's go ahead and select this whole word, come up and change it to the color of the lily pad, just a different green, and hit OK. Hit your check mark. There we go. So you have two greens going on there. We're going to put this one down here because we're going to use it for something lower down. All right, let's grab our type tool again, click one time to start. And I'm going to say frogs have it made. And I don't want that to be in this font, but I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Now that I have the words, then I can go change the font. So I'm going to come back in here, choose a simpler font. I don't care what font you choose. Something simple and skinny. There we go. And then I'm going to scale this one down. Frogs have it made. What size doesn't really matter to me. Make it look good. All right, frogs have it made. And I need to add like a dash to this. So I'm going to go back to my type tool, click back in here. I'm going to use my arrow key to scoot over and dash dash. Okay, frogs have it made. Now I need to make a copy of this box. So back to home base, Alt, drag. Okay, we're going to say they get to eat. So I'm going to take my type tool, click in here and highlight it, and then type they get to eat. And I'm going to check mark it. And then you can kind of decide where you want that to be. Okay, and then again, I'm going to Alt drag, take my type tool, what, and then bugs them, and so I'm going to take the what and make a copy of it. We're going to make it them. Frogs have it made, they get to eat what bugs them. Now let's take our move tool and just scoot these around a little bit. This might be a good time to click auto select so you can just click right on these letters. Like so. We're going to do some weird things to the letters of the words, so we're going to kind of leave it something like that. You can still move these around later, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, so we got our text on there. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add some styles. So in Photoshop, that is the FX button. So let me pop in here. This is how you would add your layer styles in Photoshop, FX button. Now, the button does the same thing. It's just got a different name in Photopea, and it's the EFF button. Still stands for layer style, effects, you know, EFF. So while I'm clicked on frogs, so make sure I'm frogs, I'm going to hit the EFF, and there's that same thing, same options they have in Photoshop. So for this one, let's put a bevel on it. Bevels kind of make things look sort of 3D. There, see, that's kind of cool looking. So we got a bevel on there. You pick this up and scoot it over so you can see better, but there's my bevel. And then maybe let's give it a glow. I'll do an outer glow. You're only going to see it on the dark green parts. So let me make it bigger. We'll size it a little bit, maybe spread it a little bit. It's a yellow glow, so I'm kind of cool with that. I think that's fine. And then I'm going to hit OK. There we go. Let's do one more thing to this. It's kind of cool. I'm going to click back on my type tool, and up here there's a thing called warp. Click on warp, and then instead of none, let's click on it. We can set a warp. I'm going to do a shell upper. I don't know if I like that or not, but anyway. And then I'm going to, you can adjust it, by the way. You can make it go the opposite way. You can kind of mess with it. You can do horizontal and vertical distortion, so it like kind of goes inside out or whatever. That's good. I like that. All right, then hit OK. And now we've got that one warped. And you can see it a little better too, because that part, if I take my move tool and scoot it over a little bit, it's going over that green, so you can see that glow over there. And you can grab a hold of this on the corner too and make it bigger if you really wanted to. Okay, so there's frogs. Have it made, they get to eat what bugs them. So now I'm going to come over here to the word bugs. I'm on auto select, so I'll just click it. And then to do text things, got to be on text tool, remember. So let's go ahead and warp this one too. I'll just do like a flag or something that kind of waves a little bit on this one. I don't want it to be too crazy, but you can choose for yourself. And then let's just go ahead and add some more additional layer styles to this one. So I'm going to click on the EFF, click over here on the layer styles. Remember that's FX in Photoshop. So some of the most common ones are going to be your drop shadow, your stroke, and we're going to add those on this one. And then the bevel that we already did on frogs that makes it look sort of 3D. And then we did an outer glow, but there's also an inner glow. There's even an inner shadow. So let's look and see what that looks like. I'm going to do an inner glow on this one. So instead of it going outside, notice as I make it bigger, see it like it starts taking over the inside, right? So I don't really love that, but I'm going to leave it there anyway. All right, what a stroke is basically the fancy word for border stroke. So if I say stroke that selection, it just means put a border around it. So I'm going to click on the stroke here. Notice that I clicked on the word stroke because it changes this little panel over here to be stuff to do with stroke. Don't check the box. It checks it automatically for you when you click on it. Click over here where the words are. Okay, so that red, maybe not what I'm looking for here. Let's do white. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to grab kind of a light color from in here and hit OK. And then you can decide how big your stroke is going to be. It's on the outside, so it's going to go around it. If it was on the inside, it would eventually like eat my letters. So that's probably best to be on the outside. All right. And then let's add a drop shadow. So that's going to put a shadow around everything. You can see that shadow, and I can change the size and the spread of it to make it a little more, fancy or whatever. You can also change the distance, which scoots it farther away. In Photoshop, you can grab a hold of the shadow and move it around manually, but you can't do that in Photopea. All right, there we go. And I'm going to hit OK here. And let's go back to the Move tool. Let's go back to Home Base. And then you can decide like exactly where you want this to be, or if you want it to be bigger, or if you want to rotate a little, or whatever you want to do to it. And then hit your check mark there. All right. So remember that stroke on here, oops, I grabbed this. This is the bad thing. If you keep that auto select on, it's easy to accidentally grab a hold of the wrong thing. Right then, I just grabbed a hold of the background. And I've had students do that. Like they turn in work and they accidentally scooted this down somehow. Yeah, like let's back up in the history on that to before we mess that up. It's really hard to put it back exactly where it goes. So be very careful. I don't generally leave auto select on unless, like I said, I'm zoomed up and working on stuff because I don't want to accidentally mess stuff up. All right, so when we created our text earlier, we just clicked on the type tool and then we created it. There's only one type tool in Photopea. Now in Photoshop, if we click, we have other options. And the other option is the vertical type tool. So let me just show you what that looks like in here. The vertical type tool types down. So if I click one time right now and I type, down it goes. Okay, I'm gonna hit my check mark here. So see how it goes? So it's almost like hitting enter after every letter. That's what vertical text looks like. So we only have that in Photoshop. Otherwise, we just consider your normal text is what we call horizontal type. Horizontal text, it just goes across the horizon line and it goes that way. One of the other things too, and we've talked about sampling colors, and it's same in Photoshop. Up here is where you change your text color. Down here, there's a color picker that you can use when you're dealing with some of the other items. But there is the eyedropper tool, and the eyedropper tool is a way to click on something and then right down here at the bottom, it will immediately change to that color. And we have that in Photopea too. You use your eyedropper to, again, the word we use is sample. Sample means pick, but sample is like take your eyedropper and click somewhere, and then that becomes the color there. That becomes the sample color. Like you think like when you go buy paint at the store and they give you paint samples. That's kind of what that's like. Almost like I guess you take an eyedropper and you get a little bit of that paint sample in there. Something like that. I don't know. Okay, so there you go. Notice that our menu bar, we have pretty much the same menu bar going on up here at the top. So far, we haven't used too many of these. For this first lesson, we just, window to access any of our panels that we need. Our main panels are going to be Navigator, History, and Layers. That's going to be pretty standard. Um, Image menu we used earlier on, not in this lesson though, because this does things to the entire document, like changing the image size, the canvas size, the overall color, or in Photoshop, the color mode. But for us in here, we focused a lot today on the layer styles, right? And we focused on those transformations. So remember, if we're clicked on a layer, Control T if you're in Photoshop, Control Alt T because otherwise we make a new tab. If you're in here, check mark, enter or double click to accept that transformation, and then we can rotate, we can scale, we can distort, we can perspective, we can do all of those different things with transformations, and then we can set them down. So yeah, there's your basics. And of course, we talked about our destructive erasers. Um, and hopefully your object looks as good as mine does. I mean, it looks pretty fly. Get it? Fly, the flies on there. All right, let's save it one last time. File save as PSD. Let's go in here. We're going to call it frog2.psd. And hopefully you're putting it on your Google Drive. And there we go. So day 2 is done. And hopefully we have this finished document.